my name's Miss Rogers and I'm here today to talk to you about Section B of the Unit 4 A2 Edexcel Drama Exam. This section of the exam is all about your vision as a director of the play that you've been studying. It's worth 30 marks of the overall exam and you should spend around 55 minutes writing your response, with about 5 minutes to plan the essay. It's a long answer essay question and you should consider very carefully the space you're offered in the answer booklet. You can't access the higher band marks without the quantity as well as the quality of your response. You really need to therefore practice timed responses to this section to be prepared for how much you'll need to write within the time frame. You'll get a choice of 2 questions for this section and you should consider the demands of each question very carefully. It's often helpful to highlight or underline key words in the question that you can keep referring back to throughout your response so that you really know that you're answering the question at every stage of your essay. Plan. I cannot stress this enough. Spend a few minutes writing a brief plan of the content of your essay at the start, and that will mean your response is structured and coherent. You'll be much more likely to produce an essay which is concise and balanced. And whilst we talk about balance, it's really important that you balance your response between your vision and how you've considered the original context of performance. Use theatrical terminology throughout to show your knowledge of theatre practice. So there are a few things that I would recommend that you do in preparation for this section, and the first of which is to reread the play. And whilst you're rereading it, really consider what are the key themes and messages that jump out to you as a reader. How are you interpreting the key characters in the play? Because that will have a lot of bearing on the overall vision that you end up directing. Research previous interpretations of productions of the play. They can be cinematic or theatrical, and consider how they've dealt with the constraints of the text, the settings, the characters, and this will often help you see how you can interpret your version of the play. Then I would start culminating information. You could do this either in a PowerPoint presentation if you work electronically, or in a sketchbook if you're a bit more kinesthetic, and put all of your research into the original context down one side, and that could include things from set design, from the stage directions or original context. It could include props lists, the social, historical, political and cultural information from the time period in which it was written or first performed, traditional costumes, the theatre it would have been first performed in and the technological constraints that may bring, the director's original intentions if you can find them out, things like that. Then going back to the themes and messages you felt were key to the play, start researching historical or current affairs events that highlight these themes. Are there any modern situations or settings that you could place the play that would highlight these themes and make the play relevant to a modern audience? Which scenes in your play highlight these themes the most? How will you highlight these scenes in your interpretation? Now, on the alternative PowerPoint slides or on the other side of your sketchbook, start considering how you see the play. It's really important that you either use your school's studio theatre or a local theatre that you are used to working in as a base for your designs, at least to start off with. It's really important because the exam boards say that all responses must be set in realistic terms, and you have the most knowledge about these places both as an actor and as a director and designer. Find images in magazines or online of places you might feel work as settings. Are these predominantly industrial settings or natural settings? Why do you think that you're drawn to those ideas? Build up images of your key characters. How do you imagine them being dressed? Consider the style you would want the play to be performed in. Is it going to be Stanislavskian and naturalistic, or is it going to be Brechtian and total theatre? They will have a strong bearing on the design you choose for the look of the play. And alongside all of this, it's incredibly important that you are justifying all of your ideas against your research into the original context. So Consider on each page of your PowerPoint slide or on each page of your sketchbook just jotting down a few sentences justifying the design ideas that happen to be on that page. And don't forget the audience. You need to understand how the original audience would have reacted to the play and how your audience will react or feel about your interpretation. So there's some key research, especially related to Woyzeck, that I would suggest that you do. The first is Strum and Drang, which means storm and stress. Modernism, absurdism, the everyman character, cafe concert and music hall, the original acting style, the original theatres, rehearsals, audience, and then quite key for Woyzeck, the time period that it was written in and when it was first performed. Then start considering things like the structure, the style and the genre, the text and the subtext, very key for Woyzeck. Do you see Woyzeck as a comedy, a tragedy or a fairy tale, because that will affect how you interpret your vision? Will you keep the scenes in the same order? There are some key scenes that cover the narrative in Woyzeck, and those are the opening, the circus, Marie and the drum major, the captain telling Woyzeck about Marie, and the murder, of course. And there are some key scenes to show Woyzeck being betrayed. Scene 5 with the captain, scene 8 with the doctor, the fight with the drum major, the grandmother in scene 20, and scene 22 where Woyzeck is exposed. So those scenes might help you depending on the direction you go with your vision. There are several interpretations that I would suggest you research. The first performance was in Munich in 1913. In 1925, Woyzeck the opera was performed in Berlin. In 1979, the Oscar-winning film of Woyzeck was produced. In 1994, a film version set in 20th century Budapest was produced. And in 2000, Tom Waits and Robert Wilson produced a musical version in Copenhagen. There are some past visions that have really stood out to me as being very successful in this exam, where they've brought Woyzeck's key themes and messages either into a modern setting or into a more modern historical setting. And those have been themes based around the French Revolution, the Irish potato famine, the Northern Soul movement in Manchester, Russia in World War I and the class divide, any war throughout history focusing on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, Victorian asylums, 1930s America, the Great Depression and Hooverville slums, the Berlin Wall and Grimm's fairy tales. I hope you found that information useful and a good reminder for your revision purposes. What's to follow is a few Section B questions from past papers for Woyzeck, which you can use to practice your timed response.